To preface, I typically go grocery shopping at around 7 or 8 p.m. nowadays, since the store is less crowded around then. However, I try not to go unless I have to because 1. COVID, 2. Being out after sundown doesn't feel comfortable for my safety. I'm a 5 foot, 110 pound woman. Despite this, the area I live and shop in is what I would consider to be safe, so going for a quick grocery run a little later in the evening has felt okay lately. This one's a bit long, but I have been wondering recently of what could have been. So about 2 weeks ago, I was at my usual grocery store at around 7 p.m. I read somewhere online that you should make your trips to the store 30 minutes or less. And being the Gemini that I am, I knew I would have to make a list on my phone to follow or I would dawdle. I began my trip in the produce section, essentially only looking up from my phone to step out of people's way or to grab what was on my list. There were more people in the store than there were usually in the evenings when I go, so I had to make a few laps to wait for folks to clear certain areas that I needed to get in. I first realized I needed to do this when I was at the carrot section, but since it was too crowded, I figured I'd circle back in a minute or two and grab something on the other side of the section in the meantime. Trying to determine where to go, I looked up from my phone and began walking towards the bananas. On my way to get them, I just kind of looked forward blankly, not really thinking of anything besides my task at hand. That was short-lived because a man in a gray zip-up hoodie and black baseball hat caught my eye as we walked past one another. I was going one direction and he was going the opposite. Nothing really stood out about him besides the fact that he was looking at me and that he was walking really fast. I didn't think anything of it and kept forth towards the bananas. As I gathered my produce and a few things along the way back to the carrots, I passed this same man again. He made eye contact with me again. Normally, I'm not the one to really make eye contact with other patrons. I'm a mind my own business kind of person. But his demeanor just caught my eye. I also noticed that he was the only person in the section not carrying anything. It had to have been at least 3 minutes since we first passed one another. So to think that he was just kind of perusing around and not getting anything was very strange. So to think that he was just, it's not like he just got there either. As I finally get the carrots, I make my way to the bakery section and the man passed me once again. This time I didn't make eye contact, but I turned around to see what he was doing. This sounds silly, but the way he was moving around the store didn't make sense. I was working my way from the front to the back, and he was walking erratically in all different directions. There was only one entrance and exit to the store, so it's not like he could have come in from the other direction. Might I remind you, he still had nothing with him. As I began to turn my head to see what the man is doing, another guy runs past me wearing all black. Okay, strange, but he ran so close to me, the hair that was in front of my left shoulder was blown behind my back from the gust of air he blew past me. Since I was already turning my head, I fixate to see where this man was going. He had run over to the man that was passing by me frequently, and they were both looking right at me and talking to one another. They were about 30 feet away from me, so I couldn't make out on what they were saying. I also only looked for maybe a second because at this point that I started to get really anxious. I like to mention that I have GAD, so when I'm in suspicious situations that might flare up my anxiety, I really tried to talk myself down from anything that might be illogical. I mean, who would follow me in a grocery store? I wasn't sure what to make of what I was seeing. In an attempt to soothe my anxious thoughts, I decided to continue shopping and tried not to fixate on the two men. I looked back down at my phone and realized I forgot to grab lemons from the produce section, so I was irritated that I had to go back. I began walking with my head down when a woman knocks my shoulder. I'm already feeling a myriad of emotions at this point. And to be touched by a stranger during a pandemic? Ugh. I was really annoyed. I looked back up behind me to see who could have possibly been clumsy enough to knock into a stranger when my eyes locked with the woman's who bumped me. Now this is kind of difficult to explain, but stay with me. It's a pretty popular thing among women to communicate solely through eye contact and body language. Now, I know that all people of all genders do this, but for women specifically, it's different. I've been out with my friends that have told me, save me from this creep, without saying a single word. So despite the mask and the distance between us, something told me to listen to her. She rolled her eyes towards the floor, as if a ball were rolling past her feet, in the exact direction of the men that were looking at me and lapping me. She didn't look directly at them, but I knew she was indicating she was about to say something about them. She looked back up to me, and in a whisper shout told me, "Heads up." My stomach sank. I knew I wasn't just paranoid. Someone else had noticed that something weird was going on. I walked past her right and said, "Mm-hmm," to indicate that I understood what she meant. It was at this point that I needed to get out of the store without looking panicked or raising suspicion. When I told my boyfriend this story, he questioned why I didn't just leave right then and there. First off, I had a basket full of produce that I needed to pay for. Second, I didn't want to raise suspicion or alert these men as to why someone they're following is suddenly making a run for it. So I swiftly began to navigate the aisles to gather a few more things on my list. As I moved through the store and looked down the aisle to see what items were there, one of the men were in each aisle walking towards me. Every aisle I went down, one of them was there. I was fucking terrified. I decided it was time to go. I went to self-checkout and hauled ass. I did my best to appear calm, but I know I looked frantic. Since it was dark outside, I did not feel comfortable walking to my car by myself. Once I was done, I approached 3 employees chatting amongst one another. I luckily got the attention of a female store manager and thought on my feet. I told her that my ex-boyfriend was in the store following me and I needed to be walked out. In hindsight, I probably should have alerted them to what was actually going on. But I wanted to get the fuck out of there. No questions asked, and she didn't ask questions. She said, "Oh shit, okay, I'm getting security walk you to your car." And as the officer appeared from the back of the line, waiting to use the self-checkout, so did the 2 men. They made eye contact and broke left, right, one right. When I tell you I almost pissed myself, my God. My heart was in my throat. Luckily, I didn't see them outside. The last I saw them was by the self-checkout. The security officer so kindly walked me to my car and made sure I drove away, which I am so grateful for. I called my boyfriend sobbing since my anxiety was so high at this point, and he advised me to take a different route home and make 4 right turns if I thought anyone was following me. For precaution, I stayed at a friend's house that night because I was so anxious. I'm so grateful nothing happened to me and that I'm here, but I cannot thank the woman who warned me in the store enough for validating my suspicions. If you witness anything that looks sketchy weird, please tell or warn someone. I haven't heard about any kidnappings or crimes towards women in my area recently, thank goodness. It just scares me to think what would have possibly happened and what kind of people are out there. I think it goes without saying that I am no longer going shopping after sundown, nor at the store. I am blanking on where I heard this, but I think it really applies to how I felt that night. It's better to be safe than sorry, and to be paranoid than dead. So many years ago, one night, I was leaving the bar at 3 a.m. That's the regular closing time where I lived. I lived out in the country, and would drive about an hour into the small city to go out on the weekends. So as I'm leaving the bar, my gas light goes off. I know it's a long drive home, so I've got to stop and get gas before I get on the interstate to go home. So I wait till I get close to the interstate on-ramp to stop at a gas station. The gas station I pulled into was itself closed, but the pump still operate with a credit card. The lights were on, but the store wasn't open. So I pulled up to the pump, and all of a sudden, 3 men come running out from behind the back of the building. They started running towards my car. Thank God my car was still running, because I hit the gas pedal as hard and as fast as I could, and I flew out of there. I drove onto the interstate and hoped I had enough gas to make it to the next exit. I got off at the next exit and stopped at a gas station and filled up and sat there shaking. I still have no idea what was going on or what happened, but it was truly one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. English is not my first language, so bear with me. So years back, I was about 10ish years old, but I'm 19 now. My dad and I lived alone in a studio space in a condo. There was this one time that before I went to sleep, I asked my dad, what time will he be able to get home? We sleep beside each other and I can't sleep well without him beside me. He said he won't be able to come home that night because of heavy workload, but will be able to eat lunch with me the day after. So I did my usual routine. I turned on the light and turned on the TV, then went to sleep. This was my way of sleeping alone. Since I was a pussy back then, I need loud sounds and bright lights. I woke up at 2 to 3ish and the lights in the TV were off. I was scared shitless. But then I felt my dad beside me, so everything was okay. I hugged him tight and went back to sleep. The next morning, I woke up without my dad beside me, so I assumed he went to work. So I called him to ask if he had breakfast and all. On the phone, I asked him what time he left for work and did he have breakfast. He then was puzzled and said that he wasn't able to come home and he is still in this office and will go home for lunchtime. Then it hit me. The lights and TV were still on the whole time. Who the hell slept beside me?